That's the cinema? Claire's voice was barely audible. Yes. It's deserted. Oh, no. Hattie's laugh sounded like fine crystal. I live here. You do? Claire concentrated on pulling into an empty park, but she could barely contain her joy. Claire felt lighter as she walked around to open the door for Hattie, who led the way to the weather-beaten double doors. She unlocked one and motioned for Claire to follow. Claire had expected the theatre to smell musty, so she was pleasantly surprised when she was greeted with a small hint of freesias, just like Hattie's perfume. Leaving the bright sunlight of Starlight Creek behind, Claire stepped across the threshold and into the foyer blanketed in darkness. She hesitated, fully anticipating Luke Jackson to leap out of the shadows and once more tell her no. Thankfully, the room remained silent. Just as her sight adjusted, Hattie turned on the light and Claire squeezed her eyes shut. A moment later, she pried them open, and when she did, a small gasp escaped her lips. Behind the dilapidated facade lay a whole new world of colour and geometric designs, all beautifully maintained. Beneath her feet were black square tiles alternating with pristine white, and to the side was a kiosk and the bar, both made from dark wood and lined with silver stripes and filigree. Tilting her head upwards, Claire took in the magnificent dome, the circular plaster mould painted in gold with an ornate grey, white and black light fixture made of squares, triangles and oblongs. I see you are quite taken, said Hattie. That's an understatement, breathed Claire. This is so very different to the outside.
Welcome to the Good Reading Magazine podcast. Good Reading Magazine is a monthly publication dedicated to books and reading and aims to help readers discover their next favourite book. You can find out more about the books discussed on today's podcast at goodreadingmagazine.com.au.
Hi and welcome to the Good Reading Podcast. Angus Dalton here with you. You just heard Alli Sinclair reading from her latest novel, The Cinema at Starlight Creek. The book jumps between rural Australia in 1994 and Hollywood in 1950. In 1994, location scout Claire Montgomery is trying to secure permission to shoot a TV show at a historic Art Deco cinema near a country town in Northern Queensland. But the elusive owner of the cinema and the town's fractured community makes things difficult. In 1950, we meet Lena Lee, an ambitious Hollywood actress holding out for bigger roles and better characters who's challenged by the male-dominated film industry and a scandalous affair. I have the author of The Cinema at Starlight Creek on the phone with me from Geelong to chat about this book. Hey, Alli, how are you?
Hi, Angus. I'm good. How are you?
Very well, thank you. All the better for your company. You describe yourself as an adventurer at heart. Have you been on any worldly adventures lately, or do you have any planned in the near future?
Always planning adventures. They're not as adventurous as when I was in my 20s and 30s, but yes, I'm always thinking about places I'd love to see and go to. So later on this year, I'm off to Europe and, exploring some really new-to-me places. So I've always wanted to go to Russia, so I'm getting a chance to go to Russia and Estonia, and not your sort of run-of-the-mill places.
No, not at all. When you're a writer, do you ever just get to go on holiday, or is it like all research?
Well, I do go on holiday, but I find that often I come across something or someone that really just inspires, a story idea. And, I don't think I ever really switch off. I try, but, the brain always kicks into gear.
I read that you've been a mountain climbing guide and you've scaled some of the world's highest peaks. Mount Everest has been in the news recently because there's been a really high death toll on the mountain this year. As someone with experience in mountain climbing, does that surprise you? Like, is this quite a dangerous pursuit?
It certainly is a very dangerous pursuit. Yes, actually, I've had a few conversations this week with people about this because it's definitely in the media now. I do think that mountaineering has changed over the last 3 decades. Now it tends to be, I'm generalising here, but it does tend to be that a lot of people are sort of paying to go onto the mountain as opposed to earning their stripes. if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean, Everest has always been expensive, but it seems to be a little bit more accessible these days if you have the money. And I don't know if the people who go have as much experience as, say, people from, say, 30, 40 years ago.
What would you say is the most memorable climb you've completed?
My very first climb in Argentina on a mountain called Aconcagua, and it's the highest mountain in the Americas. It's almost 7,000 metres high, and we just had the most perfect day to climb the summit, perfect weather, and just as we left the summit, probably about 15 minutes, everything just clouded over, and we luckily just had that clear window because the rest of the day was just horrendous. So it was very lucky because we'd spent a good 3 or 4 weeks climbing on the mountain and to get to the summit.
Yeah, 7,000 metres high. That's almost as high as Everest, right?
Yeah, Everest is 8,800 around about, I think. Yeah, so it's not far off, but 1,800 metres can make a massive difference.
Yeah, but did you still need oxygen and things like that?
No, we didn't need oxygen. We had spent a lot of time acclimatising, and they always sort of say, you climb high and you sleep low. So you'll climb hard during the day, take your camping gear and your supplies, set up a camp higher up, and then you go back down to your camp lower down. So it allows your body a chance to adjust. The air was really, really thin, definitely very thin, and you did notice it, but it wasn't quite to the point where we needed oxygen.
And you actually spent some time living in South America, right?
I did. Yes, it was my home for quite some time. It was really interesting because my first trip to Argentina, I was just mostly focused on the mountain, and I hadn't expected to fall in love with Argentina the way I did. I actually felt like I was returning home. And I went there a few times. Every time I was coming back to Australia, I would cry because I felt like I was leaving my other home.
Oh, wow.
And in the end, I was like, you know what? I just need to go there. I need to go there and spend some time there and experience my second home.
Second home, yeah. ¿Hablas español?
Sí. ¿Y tú?
Sí, un poco.
Muy bien.
I think that's as far as I can get.
I'm impressed. Well done.
Thank you. You wrote an article for Good Reading magazine in 2017 about one of your books, Beneath the Parisian Skies. And in that piece, you included this really wonderful anecdote about you as a child spinning a globe, closing your eyes, slamming down a finger, and then you'd go to the library and read books about whatever country your finger had landed on.
Yes.
Do you think this life of travel set you up for being a storyteller?
Yes, I read a quote a while ago, and I'll probably get it wrong, but it was along the lines of being a traveller turns you into a storyteller. And I always told stories as a kid, made up stories, but I do think my adventures and experiencing other cultures and learning about history and meeting an array of people has really opened up a whole new world for me, not just personally, but I think also for the kind of stories that I write, because they all do have a pretty strong influence in terms of combining different cultures and experiences of people from around the world.
As well as sort of travelling around the world, a lot of your books jump between the past and the present, like your most recent novel, The Cinema at Starlight Creek, and the book you brought out last year, Burning Fields, did that as well, I think. As a writer, what attracts you to that setup of jumping between a historical setting and a more modern one? Yeah,
it's something I find comes really naturally to me. I'm actually, my next book for next year is a single timeline, and I'm actually struggling with that. I think I like the idea of having two stories running parallel, and for example, in Starlight Creek, you've got two women who are born decades apart. One is in the 1950s and she's working in front of the camera, and then there's another one in the 1990s who's working behind the camera with her job as a location assistant. And I just felt it was really interesting to sort of compare their lives and what they're doing and see, if things have changed in 4 decades, if they hadn't. So I think it's really a good way to be able to explore what life was like then and also now as well.
I read that Burning Fields is actually set in the same North Queensland town as the 1994 thread of the cinema at Starlight Creek. What about that location or setting was so inspiring that you've gone back there a second time with your writing?
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's because I'm a Victorian and it's about 8 degrees at the moment. But I do like sitting at my desk imagining myself in sunny and warm climes. But I find North Queensland is such a beautiful visual place, and it just has a really amazing atmosphere that I just want to capture in my stories, because when I write about a particular destination in my books, I want my readers to feel like they're there, and I look at my setting as almost like a character in itself, that it can actually influence the way people behave and the different challenges that they might have.
Do you feel like you have to spend a lot of time in that location in order to write about it convincingly like that?
Oh, most definitely. Any excuse to go to Queensland.
Yeah.
It is a destination that really I think is quite close to my heart, and I do love any opportunity I can to go there and experience it. And every time I go back there, I find something new and interesting to discover.
Yeah, what about it in particular? Like, I know that the sugarcane fields were particularly important and inspiring for Burning Fields. What were some of the locations that you've been to that sort of found their way into the cinema at Starlight Creek?
Yeah, well, fictional town, but what I've done is probably taken little bits from my favourite places that I've visited around Queensland and combine them into the one area. Although the Art Deco cinema is probably a combination of a whole lot of Art Deco cinemas I've visited over the years around Australia.
I love that part. There's some really, really beautiful Art Deco cinemas in Sydney, but I've never seen one in a more rural setting like the one in the cinema at Starlight Creek. Have you come across cinemas like that in more regional locations?
No, actually, I haven't personally, and I think maybe that's why I decided to plant one there. Yeah. because part of the storyline is that Claire needs to have this particular cinema because it is in a rural location, because it fits in with the TV series that they're making. So I had to make her life a little bit difficult and couldn't, have Art Deco cinemas everywhere. Otherwise, it'd be too easy for her.
She comes up with a few sort of issues trying to advance her career. Can you extrapolate on some of those issues, both sort of personal and career-wise, that she sort of comes up against in this book?
Yeah, so Claire has grown up in a family that is very much, if you put your mind to it, you can do it. And so she's grown up with that mindset. But she's chosen an industry where women, especially location assistants and location managers, it's more of a male's job. So, but she's not letting that stop her. But of course, we have a few characters along the way who don't see it the same way as Claire. So when she gets a promotion, there's lots of rumours about why she got the promotion and why she got it over this other gentleman who he pops up throughout the book and makes her life quite difficult. And personal and also for her job as well, because she does have to travel so much and it's contract work, she never really gets that sense of home. Her home base is Melbourne, but she's rarely there. She's usually working on set somewhere around Australia. So when she does get to Starlight Creek, she actually has that sense of returning home, if you can see the theme there.
Yeah,
with
definitely.
Claire and me.
Yeah.
Right, what you know.
Yeah. Both the women that you focus on in this book as you say, work in film, one behind the camera in the case of Claire, but the other one in front of the camera in the case of Lena. Hollywood even now struggles to fully reflect the society that it claims to sort of represent, and just how problematic Hollywood is behind the scenes has been really explosively revealed with the Me Too movement in recent years. And through Lena, you explore what it's like to take on Hollywood in the 1950s as a young woman. What challenges does she face in this story?
Yeah, Lena is at the grand old age of 29. is looked upon as being too old to be, a starlet. But she doesn't let that stop her. But she does definitely come across those challenges for sure. And women what I was concentrating on in the 1950s from my research, that female actors then, there were certain expectations about how they behaved off camera as well as on camera. So, a woman who was a little bit older, who was single, who was quite independent and forward-thinking was, quite a challenge for directors and producers and also for the media. So they tried to mould Lena into following a certain, like a certain mould that was expected of women back in that era, but Lena wouldn't have a bar of it.
Yeah.
And she challenged them.
You say that as well as obviously being a writer and an adventurer at heart, you're also a researcher. So where did you start with the research for the cinema at Starlight Creek?
Yeah, I feel for the 1950s story, I've been researching all my life on that one. I grew up watching all the Hollywood classics, watching documentaries about the producers and directors and the actors, and reading lots of biographies as well. Lena is actually very loosely, based on Mae West, who was such an inspirational person. You have a certain image on the screen of who Mae West is, but when you start delving into the kind of life that she had and how much she challenged Hollywood, she was really business savvy and highly intelligent. So she was a really good inspiration for Lena. And then for the 1990s story, I was actually really lucky. I got to go on set on a big Australian TV drama, and the director and producers took me under their wing and showed me what they did, how everything worked. I got to speak to the actors and people who worked in all the different departments like makeup and costume and the script supervision. So I had a really good feel of what went on with a set, because when I write stories, I want to be as authentic as I possibly can. So I write it with the goal that if someone is an expert in a field and they're reading about what I've written, that they can't call me out and say, hey, that doesn't happen.
Yeah. That's so cool that you got to go behind the scenes of that TV show. Did that in some ways ruin the whole glamour of TV?
You know what? Sometimes now when I watch TV, I do think about when I was on the set, and I can, especially with the camera angles and how they worked those. Yeah, sometimes that does run through my head, and I just try and block it out so I can just enjoy the show. But yeah, it has changed my perspective a little bit, and actually has given me a greater appreciation for what everyone does when they work on TV shows, because it's really complicated, and there has to be a lot of planning, and it has to be planned, to within seconds. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, and I think what most people would probably be surprised by is just how many people are on set, right? Just to shoot what is seemingly a simple scene. There's scores of people watching on, right?
Oh, yeah, it's crazy. And lots of waiting around.
Oh, yeah.
Lots of waiting around for people. Yeah, it is. It's really interesting to learn about.
Absolutely. In terms of those Hollywood classics that you watched, do you have any favourites?
Some Like It Hot is probably one of my all-time favourites. I also, so many. I could be here for a while. But I love Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, Calamity Jane, any Gene Kelly movie. I'm a massive Gene Kelly fan. Oh, gosh, I could go on for hours.
Yeah. In the writing of this book and comparing the stories of these two women, do you feel like things have really changed in a significant way, or is it a little bit like, things really haven't changed that much?
It's interesting because I actually wrote this before the whole Me Too movement was out in the media. So it was obviously I must have picked up something in the air.
Yeah.
So I guess if I look at when I was writing it prior, I would say things in those 40 years that I covered, I think in terms of actresses and what was expected of them. So in the 50s, women were often paired up by their production companies with, one of the leading men, so that they were quite respectable, that sort of thing. So certainly if you look at the actresses in the 1990s, they didn't have to follow, those kind of expectations. So they had a little bit more freedom. But I think things like, equal pay with the men, I think that is still an issue right now. But I think there's still a few things that we can definitely improve on. But the fact that it's actually being talked about now is a huge step. So at least it's out there and people are talking about it and finding ways, to make things better for everybody.
We heard you talking about some of the your favourite movies that you watched growing up there, but I would love to know what some of the books were that you read growing up that sort of set you up for life as a novelist later on.
Oh, gosh, yes. I was a major Trixie Belden fan. So Trixie Belden was a amateur sleuth. She was a teenager and she lived out on a farm in New York and with her twin brother, and they rode horses and they used to go around solving crimes. So it was kind of like Nancy Drew on the back of a horse, which, for 10-year-old me, and I was obsessed with horses, was just perfect.
Yeah, that sounds I haven't heard of those. Most people just say Enid Blyton. That's way cooler. Yeah.
I'm still an Enid fan, but Trixie Belden's probably the one that really stuck with me. And then I also, as I got a little bit older, the Sweet Dreams series, which was sort of like teen romances aimed at the tween market. And then I kind of moved on to, I read Raiders of the Lost Ark before I saw the movie, and that really was probably what changed my whole perception of the world and really made me want to go out and explore and learn about different cultures. So that was really significant, that book, and it really put me onto a very, I still do read a lot of non-fiction books, so explorers such as, Edmund Hillary, and lots of travel-based adventure books, and I still read them all these decades later.
Is that the Indiana Jones one, Raiders of the Lost Ark?
Yeah,
that was a book?
It was a book.
What?
Yeah, I think it. Yeah, I know. And it was really cool because they had these covers and they were like foil covers and they came out in different colours. Like there was a green cover and a red cover. It was the same book. And I had a red cover and I loved it. I'm pretty sure I still have it actually. But yeah, I read it before I saw the movie.
Fantastic. I love finding out about those big classic movies that you just never know were actually based on a book. Cool.
Yeah, maybe they brought the book out with the movie. I don't know.
Gotcha, maybe.
I don't know.
Importantly, there is a Raiders of the Lost Ark book out there somewhere. That's the important thing here.
That's right.
Alli, I would love to know some of the books and authors that you look up to now.
Oh, gosh, yeah. Again, very long list. But I'm a really big fan of Belinda Alexandra's books.
Oh, yeah.
I love her stories. I just recently read The Invitation, which is her last book. And, that was just fabulous. Maria Dueñas is a Spanish author who her books are translated, obviously, into English. And she writes really fantastic books. Yeah, the first one was, I'm just trying to think of the name of it. I'm looking at my bookshelf right now trying to think of it. It'll come to me, but it was a spy during World War II, so that was really fun to read. Love all of Pam Denoff's books and Monica McInerney, and also Nina George, who is a German author who's been really popular over in Germany for many, many, many years, and just over the last few years has had her books translated into English, and she's done really well, which is fantastic.
Yeah, I talked to Nina George earlier this year. She is so fabulous.
You?
Yeah, and the cool thing about her actually is that she's not only a really fabulous author, she's also a really fierce activist for authors' rights and stuff over there. It was so cool to listen to her. Yeah.
Yeah, and Nina actually kindly gave the cover quote for the German edition of Under the Spanish Stars for me. So.
Oh, wow, that's so cool.
I know. I was a big fan of Nina. Yeah, and I do love her books. And then, of course, we've got all of our fantastic Australian authors as well. We've got so many fantastic authors like T.M. Clark. She's an Aussie author, but she writes books set in Africa. And they're really, really fantastic books. And we've got Rachel Johns.
With your career in writing books, you started with Luna Tango in 2014, is that right?
Yes, that's right.
Yeah. And would you say all of your books sort of fall into this sort of historical romance genre?
I'd say my first three books are, yes, all my books are dual timeline. But the first three books were, I would say, more like, I like to call them travel fiction.
Yeah.
So there is an historical timeline, and it also mixes in with a contemporary story, but it does delve into the culture and history of particular countries, so like Argentina and Spain and France, with a little bit of Russia thrown in. And then Burning Fields is definitely more of an Australian historical, but part of it is set in World War II in Italy, which was actually great because when I was researching, I discovered so many things that I never knew about Italy in World War II. So that was actually quite an eye-opener.
Do you think you'll stick with this genre of travel fiction for a while?
I think no matter what I write, there's always going to be an element of travel or history or culture because I guess it's what I love to read in other people's books. And it's also, I think, a big part of me. So I couldn't imagine writing a book without some element of it.
Good excuse to keep travelling around the world as well.
Absolutely.
Alli, it's been so wonderful to have you to talk about the cinema at Starlight Creek. You've been so much fun. Thank you so much for coming on. I hope lots of people go out and delight in your books because they're absolutely fabulous.
No, thank you, Angus, and thank you for having me on here.
You're very welcome. Thank you, Alli. Thanks for tuning into this episode of the Good Reading Podcast. The Cinema at Starlight Creek by Alli Sinclair is out now from Harlequin Books. You can get it at all good bookshops, including Good Reading's online store at goodreadingmagazine.com.au.